We have a show today. Hello boys and girls, dear singers. Today, I want to walk you through my daily routine, especially for a premiere like today. So this is what I do. Obviously, other people may do many different other things. This is just what I do and I'm just sharing it with you. It doesn't mean that what I do is what you have to do. Absolutely not. You can do your own thing. This is just my daily routine. So first thing is, I wake up terrible. Even if I'm having a great sleep, the better the sleep, the worse I wake up. Why? Because I'm a big snorer. I move around in bed a lot. I tend to shift and move and rotate all while I sleep. So by the time I wake up, I am full of phlegm. I can feel the mucus from postnasal drip in my throat. I suffer from a little bit of TMJ, but the moving and the literally sleeping my face flat on the pillow or the mattress usually tightens my jaw, so I wake up with a lot of jaw tension. I mean, this feels like if someone punched me, it's like locked. And as well as the tongue. The tongue, I guess, just because it's just been immobile, it feels a little locked as well. So one of the first things I do is unlock all that tension. Any tension in my neck, my shoulders, my jaw, my tongue, all that stuff needs to go away so that I feel very loose. One of the ways I do that, and I think I may have mentioned it before, is by getting one of these. One of the ways I do that, and I think I may have mentioned this before, is by getting one of these. Now, I don't know which brand is better or whatnot, and I'm definitely not sponsored by any of these, but I just say get one that does the job. This is a muscle massage gun and comes with 3 different types of speeds. Most of them do, different kinds of levels, and it's meant for little massages, little vibrations in places where you feel sore. I like to use one of these first in my temples as I start to unlock my jaw. And little by little, opening my mouth so it starts to feel more loose the more I massage my temples. With TMJ comes this horrible clicking sound, as well as this feeling of almost like if your jaw is dislocated, that I always constantly have to fight. And so this is great, starting with the temples here, temples in the other side, all over the hairline as well, coming down, around the chin, coming back around, in the sort of mustache area as well to kind of wake up that pharyngeal resonance. And the first thing I do is really start to be able to, even as I massage, I open my mouth wide, almost to the extreme, the jaw almost going inside instead of outside, which is more jaw tension. We don't want that. Inside. And let it just kind of dangle like if you were shot with a dose of anesthesia and it's just numb. If you don't have one of these, you can grab your little kind of knuckle area here and massage yourself in the temple and do the same thing right here in the front. You can grab your 2 fingers and right in that jaw line, pretty much where that click area is, where that division is, push up while you're trying to open your mouth and relax your jaw. So it's an upward direction with your fingers and a downward direction with your jaw. And then massage the temple area. And then repeat. It feels really great. Smiling as well helps. And then relaxing. And lastly, don't do this too aggressively, but grabbing those same fingers, pushing down on your jaw, or just relaxing. Don't force too much, which can add to the extra stress and tension later on, but just slightly. And then release. Smile, and then release. Little massages around here. The idea is to really get that loose for me. The second thing is the root of the tongue. So as we know, the root of the tongue is connected to the larynx, and we can usually access the root of the tongue right above it. So here's our little larynx cartilage, our Adam's apple, right above it. There's that sort of root of the tongue. If you have one of these, perfect thing to do is to start massaging around this area, sticking your tongue out,
And just kind of let it dangle again, like if they shot you a dose of anesthesia. And it's just there. It's just there.
Never put this in your larynx. That's going to hurt you. It's not going to feel good. Do not come close to the actual cartilage area. Just in that squishy root of the tongue, right above the larynx, is where we want that. Move it from side to side. Again, if you don't have one of these, which I do suggest is always really great to have, with your little fingers, you could do the same thing. Moving it side to side and just trying to get a looseness in the neck area and the jaw area, because that is probably one of the #1 tension spots that will inhibit your ability to sing freely and comfortably. So after I do that, which probably takes about, 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, not very much, I go take a shower. I'm a morning shower person, but especially to get rid of that postnasal drip and all that phlegm. Take a shower, a nice warm shower with steam. Steam will immediately help you loosen all the gunk inside that you have and all that extra mucus in the cords as well that sometimes gets stuck as they're trying to vibrate, and we've all been there in which we're trying to sing an aria, but god damn it, we have this phlegm that's just like, ugh. And then usually it comes out with a high note. We're singing a high note and then, and then it comes out. So get rid of all that. I tend to take longer showers in the morning. Do your normal routine in the shower just while really inhaling that steam. I even brush my teeth, mouthwash, all in the shower so I can just continue to stay longer in that steam and spit out all that gunk. You can also do these massages with your fingers in the shower as well. Once I feel very loose here in my neck area as well, you can massage yourself here, and I feel free of any phlegm and gunk, I start my warm-ups. Usually, like today, when I have a premiere later on in the evening, I'm not gonna wanna warm up aggressively like if I'm gonna sing in an hour. I like to take my time, and one of the biggest goals I try to think about when I warm up is really stretching those cords, really engaging that cricothyroid muscle, which is the muscle that stretches and thins the vocal cords. This changes the quality of sound. I'm speaking to you in my normal speaking voice, my normal chest sound, which has a lot of that arytenoid muscle. Oh, no, I'm more into this cricothyroid sound. And so I start to engage this. One of the ways I do this is I start in falsetto. I don't necessarily have a specific note, but just somewhat in the higher range, not too high, not low, but somewhat high, but in falsetto with an open throat, like if you're slurping noodles. So you have that opening, when you feel that lowering of the larynx, that soft palate rising, and then sing a beautiful ooh falsetto vowel, and from that high note, take it all the way down and connect to the full voice. So I start the voice gently. I start phonating in a healthy way. That's how I start my day. And I do this a couple times, going half step higher, maybe going half step lower, until I'm starting to get that feeling of stretching and looseness in the vocal cords. The next thing I do is the tongue. I want to make sure that the tongue is out of the way, and I really like to isolate ideas. So I start with the tongue and the idea of chiaro, squillo, aperto. How bright is my vowels today? Because remember, we're made out of flesh and blood. So today is going to be different than yesterday, which is going to be different from the day before. So I like to test out my extremes. In the shower, while in the steam, I grab my tongue with my fingers. And while really finding total relaxation in the tongue, I start to think the brightest, ugliest, SpongeBob-y, chiaro vowel as possible. While I am doing this, I am also, which is probably the biggest help I have ever done with my voice, integrate laryngeal freedom exercises, things like yodeling or cracking, things that move the larynx. Because for me specifically, I have found that my biggest problem or tension comes from a point of view of lowering your larynx and keeping your larynx compressed and caged. And that's not the case. That is not what we want. We want the larynx in a neutrally low position, not compressed, not high, but in a neutrally low position, but that is still able to jiggle and be free in that neutrally low position. If it breaks from that position and comes up, then you're probably going to crack. That's usually what happens. When the larynx comes up, you're going to feel that feeling of strangulation, like that swallowing sensation, and not good things are probably going to come out of it. But we also don't want the opposite, which is the over-lowering and over-compressing of the larynx, which is done muscularly as well, which is tension. So yodeling, keeping in that beautiful sigh in a beautiful, gentle manner, never aggressive. Nothing that I do is ever aggressive or violent against the voice. And going from the lowest part of my range to the highest part of my range, and letting the voice switch from chest to head to falsetto. This is not about making a pretty sound. We're just warming up the mechanisms, the functions. Really letting it all loose. To you will probably sound wild and crazy. That's correct. We're letting the sound be completely free, free of any manipulation, free of any control, allowing the larynx to just jiggle around and be free, that tongue to be nice and loose and relaxed. And we're just thinking of a SpongeBob-y bright chiaro chiaro vowel. And allowing it to crack and not crack and yodel. Cracking is a good thing, and I have mentioned this in my videos before. It's a wonderful consequence of the body telling you to relax your larynx, that your larynx is too tense and compressed, and therefore it wants to jiggle and move. Most singers that crack during an aria are singers that are possibly over-compressing their larynx, trying to sing high and stretch and thin their chords, but it's not going to happen when you're engaging muscularly your larynx to keep it down. You will not be able to engage the cricothyroid if you're trying to compress your larynx downwards. So I do that up and down, up and down, up and down until I really feel a lot of looseness in the sound, re-engaging from falsetto to chest, falsetto to chest. So this is isolating the chiaro mechanism as well as finding lots and lots of freedom, looseness, no tension. Then I go to the complete opposite. While still absorbing steam and in the shower, I now go to the scuro. I think about that beautiful opening yawn. And I focus only on the space, the darkness. I keep things breathy. I don't think about chord closure yet. I do literally the opposite of what we just did with the tongue out and the larynx moving and the bright vowels with nice gentle chord closure. This is all about space, scuro, darkness. Sometimes I grab a bottle cap or my thumb, put it right against sort of my wisdom teeth or sort of my mandible, and think of a really dark O spacious vowel, keeping the gola aperta. Allowing it to go from head voice to falsetto and back, and getting out of the way, letting the voice make those changes, allowing it to do those things. Sometimes we get so scared about switching to falsetto. Do it. It's a warm-up. Allow the voice to switch to falsetto so it has the full range of that stretch from thick short chords in chest register, all the way to the thinnest and stretched it can get in pure breathy falsetto. Another thing to do in that sort of scuro is I find a very breathy o vowel or oo vowel by slurping, again, like if you're slurping noodles, which when you do that, like if you're eating spaghetti or slurping spaghetti, you immediately get that lower laryngeal position. Just be conscious not to compress. And now that I have that beautiful oo vowel with that spacious dome, soft palate is raised, larynx is lower, I start from a very scuro, breathy oo and try to find chord closure really clavicularly. Ooh, oh, ooh, It's not about finding that clear optimal chord closure, which we will get to, but it's really just about maintaining that gola aperta position while keeping everything quite heady, quite breathy, and feeding it a little bit more of that breath support, that appoggio. Now, this is not how I'm going to go on stage and sing. This is, again, one half of the coin. We're playing and isolating with the idea of scuro, scuro, scuro. What I do after warming up and realizing where is my scuro for this day, because again, it changes from yesterday or the day before because we're made out of flesh and blood, so nothing is machine-like. When I find where these extremes are, my chiaro, my scuro, then I start to put it together. The next thing I do is using sort of the G consonant, g, l, l, kind of like a gag, l, 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 kind of like that type of G, l, l. With again my tongue sticking out, I find that point, that focal point. Ba, 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 because I really want to feel that height, that pointiness that the sound has. And I try to then, little by little, start to add a little bit of the oscuro that we did before. But I find that the G, because it moves the larynx up and down, we don't start phonation with a rigid, caged larynx. It's always, oh, it's kind of like that yodel. Oh, 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 oh. And finally, you may have guessed it, we put it all together and we try to find the balance between that bright, open, chiaro vowel, ah, ah, and that yawn, hooey, breathy, dark, spacious dome position, gola aperta. And we find the balance. And start to find chord closure, right? Start to find that bright, clear vowel in that gola aperta, spacious position. When I finally put both sort of extremes together and find where my middle ground is of the day, I usually start around B below middle C, so B3, and I do a quick 4-scale vocalization with an A vowel, just to kind of feel where everything is that day. Integrating a lot of that sigh, never aggressively pushing, shoving, or forcing the sound. Ah, 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 Again, focusing on that focal point while maintaining that feeling of spaciousness, that feeling of that gola aperta, feeling how the voice turns by itself. Don't turn it yourself. It's going to want to tilt. As long as we maintain that gola aperta and we have that beautiful focal point in our vowel as we sing, the larynx will tilt by itself. Do not force a cover, as that will lead to fatigue. And actually, it does tend to lead into wobbling. If you do it for many, 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 many decades, it will turn into a wobble if you start to force cover too early because you want to go for this dark sound. Be honest to yourself and allow the voice to be its true self. If it covers, then it covers. If it doesn't cover, don't force it to cover just because it's an F sharp. For me, F sharps are open but covered. Aperto ma coperto. Doesn't mean I'm totally tilted by that place yet. Oh, 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 oh. I'm not forcing a cover there. It's still open and feels very free. Then I play a little bit with some subglottic attacks. Again, feeling the idea of integrating that sigh so that the vocal cords stay loose, but the initiation is very clavicular. It's quite grounded in the sound, so it doesn't feel like I'm just in the stratosphere with no support, but it feels like the initiation has enough subglottic pressure for phonation. And then finally, once I'm now loose with my jaw, my tongue, I play with my balances, my chiaro, my scuro. I have found the balance of the voice, and I have gone up and down in the range, gently, loosely, switching from falsetto to the full voice. The larynx is also free, with those yodeling. And using that yodeling sensation, that vocal crack, to go from the falsetto position in which the chords are stretched and thin to that full sound and back. And you could do this, by the way, with every note, even starting down here. And kind of using that crack to initiate that connection back to the full voice. But you start in falsetto, because in falsetto, it's kind of like the guide. It's kind of like, it's just telling you, this is the position you want to be. Sing your full voice in this position. With gola aperta. And once you feel that crack as the larynx goes up and re-engages, when it re-engages to the full voice, try to maintain that position that you had with falsetto, but you're doing it in full voice. Really helps to cut out all the extra fat that we sometimes put when we sing that we absolutely don't need. The falsetto is already a position of stretched and thin chords, and we're bringing the full voice to that type of level when we re-engage. But I digress. The final thing I do is I start taking some excerpts of music, such as the ending cadenza of La Donna Mobile. Pensiamo Another one is una furtiva lagrima. Little cadences that get to move the voice a little bit. Ooh, non quiere. To kind of feel the flexibility of moving the sound. Little coloratura exercises that go up and go down using actual musical examples. And if you can include things that go from forte to piano or back to forte, and singing in that beautiful bubble that I mentioned, in which you never burst it by trying to sing 150% fortissimo, in which you can't go back to a piano, or you can't diminuendo back to a piano, or likewise, in which you're singing a piano that is totally disconnected, falsetto, and you can't crescendo back to a forte. If you can't do those things, you've bursted the bubble. Stay in your bubble of dynamics. This is where your longevity in your career and your voice is going to be. This is your vocal health. I'm staying in that bubble. I can go forte to piano, back to forte. But if I go, I'm not really sure I can come back from that. That could be a tool for maybe one moment in the whole opera, but I wouldn't sing like that, and I would definitely not warm up like that. I was still able to come back. But still, I would say be careful. Be careful not to go from 0 to 150, 200%. 0 to 10, 20, 50. Then you can grow the sound, at least when you're warming up and you're just starting the vocal mechanism. So that's my morning routine and my warm-ups. I usually get out of the shower. I then make a little tea with honey. If I have some lemon ginger tea, it's fantastic. If not, your regular green tea. But I'm not very picky, whatever tea you prefer. But for me, the honey part is the most important part, because honey is a natural vocal soother. So especially those days in which you're feeling maybe a little tired, maybe you used a little too much voice the day before, or you're starting to feel a little sick, some honey goes a long way. Then later on, I start to stretch the body and make sure that the body is also warmed up, not just the voice, which I have done a live about that. If you want to check that live, it's actually in the members only videos. Like and subscribe, become a member, and you get access to all that content. Check out my Instagram as well, tenor_Simarija, in which we're also now doing exclusive content behind the scenes. These stretches that I mentioned, as well as the workouts that warm up the body, as well as the voice, is there under the exclusive content. Click the button, become a subscriber, and you also get access to that as well. I hope this was a little bit of help. Again, these are my routine, doesn't mean it has to be yours. Continue studying, practicing, and like always, the work continues. Ciao, ciao for now.